The Best Bets show presented by BetRivers. We are the three-man weave here to talk to you about a wonderful slate of basketball, 70-plus games. It's huge. The biggest slate before we go on a little bit of a hiatus, pre-Christmas, pre-holidays. Jim and Matt are here. Matt looking great from his St. Louis abode. We are both now in the great state of Missouri. Jim still holding it down in Chicago. Let's get Jim's takeaways first from yesterday. What'd you see? What'd you like?
I was going to fill in the blanks on takeaways that you guys missed. Unfortunately, I'm going first, so I've got a whole lot of them. Marquette-Providence was an awesome game. Really back and forth. Marquette came back from down 8 in overtime. Rather impressive. Ended up losing in double OT, but it was a really fun game. Florida is yikes. Pitt is good. The ACC home teams were solid. SEC stunk. I'm sure I stole takeaways from you guys, but I think all those are relevant. Matthew, what was your specific takeaway?
Wake Forest, the ultimate whack-a-mole team. I'm really tired of them. Winning by 11 after backing them emphatically, and just the absolute collapse that was LSU. And then the Rutgers no-show. Of course, they get back home and catch a flu-ridden Duke team. And the final point is the flu still stinks.
The flu is
quite
ridiculous.
It does. It's quite frustrating. Xavier had the flu yesterday, didn't cover. If you know a team has the flu prior to tip-off, boy, you have the nuts, as they say in college basketball betting or regular betting as well, I suppose. My takeaway, Georgetown, you punks. Yeah, you spoiled UConn's perfect ATS record and my best bet. Those are still pretty ice cold from yours truly. Luckily, Jim had a nice day yesterday for us. UConn, by the way, though, they've still won all 13 games by double digits. That's a pretty impressive streak they have going on right now. They played fine, just didn't stop Georgetown enough. So I guess kudos to the Hoyas for keeping it within 20 or so. Anywho's. My last takeaway is SEC debacle. Ole Miss lost to North Alabama. Miss State lost to Drake. Texas A&M lost to Wofford. Florida lost to Oklahoma. That's not a good showing for the SEC. Yikes. The Tigers looking better by the day, Jim. Our Mizzou Tigers.
Oh, yeah. Just rise up. Don't play and rise up the rankings. That's what we do.
Slide that in there. Okay. Let's get started with the slate here. Really good game starting us off. Michigan versus North Carolina in Charlotte. Matt, my first opinion, 5 seems high. My number says I should bet Michigan, but I didn't pull the trigger. I don't really trust this team. What do you think?
I took the money line. I was hoping to catch 6. I did take the money line equivalent price at 5. I think it was like plus 180. Pretty simple spot reason here. I think we've talked about big games where there's a revenge angle, plus the fact that there's a desire, a yearning to actually get a big win on a resume that lacks it. Michigan with the matchup versus UNC. And just kind of their close but no cigar theme to this season. I think they get this one tonight. It's in Charlotte, so as semi-home as Ken Pom labels it. I think Hunter has a big-time game. Jim, I'm worried that fading UNC off of the mojo of last game could be a foolish move, but I don't know. You could argue UNC was lucky to win that game and cover that game, obviously, in overtime. So maybe they're not fully back to normal. Maybe they still have some things that they're ironing out.
Yeah, I think they're trending up, and I'm worried there's a chance that they just like kind of assert themselves, mostly because Michigan is not that good right now. Unfortunately, Dickinson's fantastic. Jet Howard is outstanding and probably going to be a first-round pick, just one and done type of guy. But their guard plays a little shaky still. As much as I like Doug McDaniel, he is erratic, and that could be a problem. Maybe he and Caleb Love will trade some really questionable and eyebrow-raising plays here. My number did lean Michigan as well. I kind of nudged it up by giving UNC a little extra for home, maybe than I should have in Charlotte, but I think it'll be a pretty pro-UNC crowd. Mm-hmm. They did this same group took care of a better Michigan team last year. So maybe they're complacent, but it is kind of a low number. Kai, I sat it out. I didn't end up getting in on this one.
Yeah, this is Michigan's first major test without Llewellyn in the lineup, and I think Doug McDaniel's better, but the depth is certainly a question without Llewellyn in the fold. They've missed him for 2 straight games. He didn't finish the Kentucky game. Michigan ended up covering. Very impressive by them. I don't think Hunter Dickinson will be stopped, Matt, in this game. I think I agree with you on that point. Bacot is going to be hyper motivated. He loves these type of challenges, but I think Hunter wins that battle. UNC guard plays the question as it always is, but 62.5% assist rate against Ohio State as a team, UNC. They're starting to share the ball a bit more. Caleb Love has 7 assists. Amazing how good things happen in that scenario when he's just not jacking shots all day. Leaky Black on Jet Howard. That seems like a pretty good matchup for UNC. They have a perfect defender for a player that's been fantastic this year. So my gut's kind of leaning UNC here. Numbers Michigan. That's a stay away for me. Next game, another neutral contest. This one's in Salt Lake City. TCU versus Utah. Jim, I'm a TCU guy. Buy low on the Frogs, sell high on the Utes. I'm all about it. What do you think?
Yep, Horny Frogs. For me, I was shocked that they aren't a favorite. I thought they would get bet to a favorite at the very least, even if it didn't open there. I know it's in Salt Lake City, so there's some semi-home there with both crowd and elevation. That could be an issue, but TCU is about as healthy as you're going to get. I think they're fully healthy. Eddie Lampkin is officially in per John Rothstein, and they're 3-1 against the spread with Baugh back. It allows Miles to play more off the ball. He's been much better as a scorer there. I think they can compete inside. Both teams will struggle to score inside. I think the interior defenses are really solid. But Utah's due for some regression on both their own three-point shooting and opponent three-point shooting, also their own mid-range shooting and opponent mid-range shooting. I think we start to see some of that today against TCU. And I just think TCU is better. I thought they were better since the preseason. I'll take them as a slight dog here. Not quite a best bet, but pretty close for me. So Matt, I would be all over the Horned Frogs today.
Yeah, I do lean Horned Frogs too. I don't really buy all of the Utah shooting regression. I think they've had some big leads in a lot of their games. So a lot of that shot quality stuff is baked in, I think, garbage time shot selection when they have a big lead and vice versa. So I don't know. I'm not discounting that entire narrative. I just think it's not as strong as it looks on paper, which, as Jim mentioned, it's pretty strong. And I just think, with Lampkin back, now that he's confirmed, that's so big. Like against Carlson up front, you have to have someone who can, neutralize the length that Utah can throw at you up front. And I think with Lampkin in there, they can. I worry about backing TCU. This is like a game too soon. Like I want to see them fully formed for maybe a game or two before it's like the TCU takeoff that I think we're all expecting. But I definitely lean their way. And you could be arguing that now it's the lowest point to buy low, Kai, as your initial onset.
Yeah, that's basically my handicap of it. I think TCU is undervalued right now. And Jim mentioned fully healthy. With Damian Baugh in the lineup, they're 4-0. They're 3-1 against the spread. They clearly needed him when he was out to start the year. Lampkin's back, as Jim said as well. And the Utah regression, I'm kind of buying into it. 5th in the country in three-point percentage defense, 36th in free throw percentage defense. But the one stat, this team, which is essentially the same as last year, is shooting 400 basis points, 4 percentage points, better than last season from deep.
Basis points. I love it.
Basis points, 400 basis points, Jim, better than last year from deep. That's probably due for some regression. They don't shoot a lot of threes, but man, they're hitting them at a lot higher rate this season. It's got to fall down. I like TCU a lot in this game. Go Horned Frogs.
Yeah, Kai, Virginia's down 7% from when we said they inevitably had to come down. We can say that about Utah, a team that we generally like, but they are also owed some regression, like you said.
Indeed.
Just a quick request. I think, I need Scotty Schaefer to just little definition for the chat mob on basis points. I have a feeling we have some people in there who don't know what basis points.
100 basis points, 1%.
Very good. That's right. And there you have it.
Virginia not Virginia. St. John's at Villanova. Big East battle here. This is what I say, Jim. Nova's game. 4-0 with Whitmore in the lineup. 2-2 against the spread. Not as good. Tell me why I'm wrong. Tell me why I'm right. It's -5 now. The market has taken Villanova pretty high.
Yeah, what scares me is that it's a team with questionable point guard play against St. John's, and that's always a little bit tough in the matchup sense. If they turn the ball over, that could be problems. We saw Pasha Alexander turn Colin Gillespie over even when he was a senior, fourth-year super veteran guy. So the fact that Villanova's 5th in the country in turnover rate isn't like automatic. They won't turn it over against this pressure because St. John's is just kind of a different caliber. And Chris Archidiakono and Mark Armstrong could be a little susceptible to it. That said, Matt, I am also buying that Villanova, different version with Cam Whitmore. He is like a lottery pick. He's played like it. Totally different gear for them. They weren't able to get away from St. Joe's, but that's a huge rivalry game. I would lean towards Villanova here. I liked it at a lower number. It's been bet up out of where I would play it. But I would definitely lean towards Nova. I saw somebody say there's 9 straight unders. I cannot vouch for that in this matchup.
I believe that completely. Yeah.
I know there was Villanova had one like maybe either last year or 2 years ago where they were up like 30 and it ended up like a 2-point game. It was ridiculous, but I guess under could be the angle here because Villanova slows them down. But Matt, I lean Villanova and I guess the under.
Yeah, I definitely lean Villanova. I also lean the under. I just think in an extreme pace war, Villanova always wins that tug of war. Like especially this season, like it seems like Neptune is even more adamant about playing out of the half court than they have been in priors under Wright. And it makes sense without like a point guard. Like you don't need to run up and down if you don't have a guy who you trust to, ignite the break. Now, having Whitmore in there certainly helps, not like a pure point guard, but against the pressure that St. John's is going to throw, you're going to be a lot more at ease with him as one of the handlers back there, as opposed to a ton of Archie Diacono being exposed. However, Kai, I think it's a sucker bet at 5. I think you have to respect what St. John's has done this season. I think they're a little bit overrated. I don't think they're all the way overrated. You look at that roster, like just take a second glance at it. Like there's some guys there that you just forget are not the erratic, what's going to happen on this possession type of dudes, like, Montez Mathis, and up front, they got some bodies. So I think it's actually a good roster. One I may have discounted upon second review.
It's a good roster, but I still like Villanova here. It's St. John's second true road game. They didn't do well in their first one. They're 1-0 in league play, St. John's, a little fat and happy. It's a perfect chance for Villanova to kind of restart their season, hit the reset button. They had high preseason expectations. They didn't live up to them. Injuries certainly played a factor, and now they have a chance to be fully healthy and kind of take the Big East by storm here. Can they keep Posh, Curbelo out of the paint? Can they keep Soriano and Jones off the glass? Those are good questions. I think they can handle the ball against St. John's. Fifth best team in turnover rate. Say what you will about Archie Diacono, but he has been pretty good with not turning the ball over, him and Caleb Daniels and even Mark Armstrong. And I like Villanova's switchability on defense. They can go 6'5 plus across the board in most of their lineups. I think that helps slide against St. John's. So I'm leaning towards Villanova at -5. It got up a little bit too high for me to fully recommend officially. Next game here before we hit chat mob, it's Auburn at Washington. The Tigers continue their Pac-12 travel, Matthew. They just lost to USC. You had a nice winner on that game. Auburn's probably the most overrated team right now in the KenPom top 25. You could probably argue that. They've done nothing impressive right now. Matt, what do you think about this game?
Man, I got bet down a little more. I was trying to catch 5. I missed that, and maybe thinking about 4, and I missed that. Now it's 3.5 pretty much across the board. I think the market has this one sniffed out. It's just a tough spot with the West Coast travel for Auburn, especially with their guards a little bit banged up right now. And I just saw Jalen Williams is supposed to play today. He got rocked in the head last game or something weird. I guess he'll be fine, but he's a huge player for them. I mean, he's been nails on both ends. It's just not as deep of a team as in years past. So like those injuries kind of matter. I think the fatigue of the schedule they play, the West Coast nature, just the spot to me feels really, really bad, especially against the zone and kind of a tough wrinkle schematically, Jim. Everything to me screams Washington, but the line is so low. It's Washington. This is the perfect game where Washington just lays an absolute stinker. And it's like, Washington, there you go again.
Yep. I don't want to lose my money on Washington. I don't want to lose my money on road Auburn. Going to sit it out. Matchup wise and spot wise, I think it does trend towards Washington. Auburn's 330th in 3-point percentage. Wendell Green is one of their better shooters. He only managed 12 minutes at USC. He's clearly banged up. They got a nice outing from Trey Donaldson, the freshman guard, but I don't know if he's going to be the consistent leader at point guard that they really need right now. Kai, I can't trust him enough to back Washington. Without Kepnang, I think they're too thin up front.
Yeah, there's a lot of different things that has me basically staying away at the end in this game. Auburn away from home, Jim, 1-3 against the spread. That includes neutral and true away games. Clearly not as good as they are at home. That was shown last year as well. Auburn hasn't seen a lot of zone this year. They've been pretty solid against the zone they have seen per synergy, but it hasn't been much. Small sample size. They should punish Washington on the glass. It should make it pretty hard for them to score, but I don't trust them. And the line's too low, as Matt said, for me to back Washington. It's stay away from me. Let's get to chat mob part 1. I think Jim's my czar here.
Sure am. A lot of questions, which equates or makes sense since there's a lot of games. Start with UC Santa Barbara and Appalachian State. Matthew, anything for you on this one? Santa Barbara hasn't quite been as good as maybe we hoped. This game's in Phoenix, by the way.
Yeah, and then no Gregory last game for App State, who is arguably their best player, one of their best players. Have no idea what his status is today, so I stayed away from that. Santa Barbara, I think, they're better than they've played. Just been some tough schedule spots, but I think App State's been really good too. And Dustin Kearns is a coach I respect. Not looking to fade him, so yeah, stay away from me.
Yeah, this one was tough to figure out. Kai, leg show's lock of the day is UTEP. They're hosting NC I actually agree. I like this UTEP team. I think that DePaul performance was an outlier. And NC has been out west. They were in Vegas. Now they go down to El Paso. Kind of a weird, before Christmas, let's just get home kind of game. That would be my sense of it. What do you think?
Pop quiz. Who is the luckiest team in KenPom right now?
NC
It's UTEP.
It's UTEP, yeah.
In fact, it is UTEP, and that surprised me. Per last year against the spread, being the luckiest team in America. Shouldn't really move the needle either way. Just wanted to point it out. I have no feel in this game, Jim.
UTEP is so bad at free throw shooting. So bad at free throw shooting.
So yeah, they've won by 12 in overtime, by 3, by 1, by 5.
Maybe take first half. That's my suggestion. Maybe take first half. Although second half is when NCAA could crack given their schedule. I don't know. Okay, sorry. Next.
That's tough to figure. Matt, a couple of people asked about Ohio and Delaware. We've backed Ohio a little bit recently. They got smacked by Florida, but then they had a big home performance. Delaware coming off that buzzer-beating win at Rider. What do you think?
Yep. Ohio is for lovers, and it's also for bettors, including myself today. I am on Ohio again. I think Delaware coming off 2 absolute wars is going to finally catch up to him today. And this Ohio team is really good. Just a tough spot going down to Florida. I foolishly backed him last game. I tossed out that result. I think they get it done today on the road.
Lakeshaw also mentioned the Iowa over. He likes that. I'm just going to reveal one of my best bets because people might have already seen it on Action Network. Iowa, minus 31.5. I think they blow out Eastern Illinois. I'm continuing to ride the Fran McCaffrey trend of just dominant as a big home favorite. 46-14 against the spread. And Kai, if you shorten that to the last 4 years, 15-0. 15-0 against the spread as a big November, December home favorite. He just smashes teams, and they've already done it once without Chris Murray, so I'm not worried about that. We'll probably lean towards over, but really it's more about Iowa there for me. Kai, another question for you. Samford and Belmont, these teams I think have played 2 straight years, gone back and forth with the matchup and the victor. Obviously injury questions here. What's your sense of this one?
I took Belmont at -3, but guess what? It is -5 right now. Hey, closing line value for Kai. Hooray, hurrah, Mizzou. Samford without Case Glover in the lineup has been not nearly as good this season. Now, Samford, among the unluckiest teams in the country, if you want to go the other way with that metric I said earlier. I like Belmont here, though, still. They're a really tough team to play on the road. Home teams, I think, are going to do very well here around Christmas time.
Yeah, I kind of like the under as well without Glover. I think he's a big part of that. Matt, our Green Wave. Ronnie Hunter in the Green Wave. Mississippi Valley State is on the road there. This is in state, so maybe I guess not quite in state. But do you think the Delta Devs, your Delta Devs, no pennant in the background this time, do you think they can hang around against Tulane?
I kind of think so. A little bit discouraged by Tulane's game against George Mason, but kind of thought they would take off there and make a statement. Maybe they're still in their beta formation of maturity with a lot of guys in and out of the lineup, mainly Jalen Cook to start the year. And I think the zone, maybe the sleepy spot of the schedule, makes this a slight, kind of like the Alabama-Jackson State game yesterday, where it was like Alabama clearly just didn't have it, right? And Jackson State kind of hung around by default. Maybe the Delta Devils do this.
That was lucky last year, UNC Wilmington. They are headed to Campbell. I'd like to give away that I like the under a lot. What do you like here?
I got nothing on the side. I guess I lean towards Campbell at +3. I know the chat's not going to like that. I've seen a lot of Wilmington guys in there. Not going to go against Wilmington. They've been a juggernaut against the spread. Did win against the spread against them actually last game with High Point, but it was lucky. Yeah, tough team to fade right now. Campbell's still a little bit hurt as well. Carolero hasn't played in a while. I think Dunn came back, but still a team you need to kind of check the lineup on.
Yeah, very important. Carolero is kind of like they play a lot of Princeton stuff, and he's one of the passers. Him and Lucane do a lot of that. All right, Matt, one more before we go back to the outline. And I'm going to give a quick plea to the chat mob, especially on big slates like today or a Saturday in the future. If you can give your question in the form of road team, home team, road team, then home team, or really the order that it comes on the betting board rotation, that's super helpful. And if you give both teams, also super helpful. It's hard to remember all 100 games and who plays who. So that is just a humble request. You don't have to do it, but if you can, that'd be great.
And formal question.
Hey, when I'm Czar, you can be as informal as you want. I will I will unpack all cryptic messages, baby. So
Matt will unpack it, but also skip over like 7 different requests.
Yeah, so I might miss your question. Sure. I don't have it might be a crap question. I'm not going to take it, but no rules, no enforcement.
Question. All right, Matt, before we go back to the outline, you get Bucknell at Richmond from the J-Man.
Bucknell was without Andre Screen last game. He's supposed to play. Good research by me on the official school website. Props to Bucknell. That helps because Richmond has eviscerated teams the last couple of games with their inside-out action. Matt Grace back helps a lot. I was going to take Richmond here, but Screen back, maybe stay away.
And Jack Forrest debuted. I think he's going to matter.
The St. Joe's guy, yeah.
And Richmond got eviscerated themselves by Clemson, so they haven't been all roses and sunshine recently. But all right, Kai, we'll go back to you, back to the outline here. I'll continue collecting questions.
Let's go to USC versus Colorado State, another neutral contest here. Phoenix is the location. My question is, which Colorado State do we get tonight, Matthew? The team that lost Northern Colorado and then Colorado by 30, or the team that just beat St. Mary's on the road? What say you?
Well, I have no idea which version shows up. I just feel like they're still a little bit banged up. Colorado State, I mean, I know they've gotten healthier, but their inconsistency is tied to the fact that they're not a fully formed unit. I think you've seen the same thing with Wyoming, right? Two teams that are very analytically based. They're very well coached, but they've been wildly inconsistent, especially the last few weeks. Kind of also think that USC's own different defenses could not thwart Colorado State, but at least disrupt their offensive rhythm. The key thing, though, Jim, is will Colorado State guard, right? That's their biggest question mark, right? Like when they get blown out, it's because they don't play defense. And when they compete and when they win, it's because they have a favorable matchup or they just happen to defend that night.
It's hard for them to play defense because they don't have a lot of size inside. That's a rather large issue for them. They were able to compete with St. Mary's in a super slow game. I was actually relatively impressed there. But I also have nightmares of that Colorado performance where they just got wiped off the floor from basically the opening tip, and the second half was just a celebration of Deion Sanders the entire time. So, Kai, I don't really have anything on this one. It is neutral in Phoenix. I wish it was at Colorado State, so they would have the elevation edge. I do agree. I think Pat mentioned it. Nico Medved versus Andy Enfield is almost worth a bet itself.
Yep, exactly. That's what I wrote down. We know which way to go here, Enfield versus Medved, but the line's about right. I stayed away. It's not a good matchup size-wise for Colorado State. USC definitely has that advantage, but it's a typical USC team. It's a gaudy record, weak analytics, same old, same old. So I'm staying away here until I figure out what Colorado State really is. Next one here, staying on the West Coast, it's Arizona State at San Francisco. Jim, ASU is scorching right now. They've won 9 straight. They're 8-1 against the spread in that stretch. It's a very scary fade here. Who do you like?
Yeah, my number liked San Francisco, and I took it small, and I don't feel good about it. Like Matthew, I just faded Arizona State with a shorthanded San Diego, and we never had a chance in that one, unfortunately. And I'm concerned that could happen here, but I also think this San Francisco team's talented enough to get up, should bounce back from their really disheartening loss to Arlington. That was rather dismal, and hopefully they're looking to get a better taste in their mouths before Christmas here. But man, I feel like they are above their heads right now a little bit, but there is some solid talent level, and maybe San Francisco's not quite what they were last year.
I think Arizona State's defense is very real. I think their offense is a little bit inflated. Like I watched more Washington, and I remember watching a little bit for Nevada. Like he's way better this year. I guess he was always banged up, but like he's like kind of a nimbly 7-footer that like is a real rim protector and completely changes that defensive outlook. This is an ugly game. I kind of like the under. I guess the pace is what's driving the over money here. It's been bet up to 142. This feels like two teams that have pretty strong front lines. I don't think San Francisco's front lines as good as it was last year, obviously, but it's still going to be, I think, a game that's going to be a little bit slower paced. Should be competitive. I worry about the revenge angle, Kai, from Arizona State getting beat last year on a back-to-back by the Dons, but I think the Dons also thwart that because they just lost to UT Arlington at home, like convincingly. So it's probably a good spot to back the Dons, excuse me.
I think it's a good spot too. They're not a pushover. Their guard play, I think, gives them a chance to win this game. They can shoot, make plays. Arizona State's defense does scare me, but it's really stout inside. And that's basically what the Dons don't like to exploit as much as the perimeter. So this one's actually getting bet down as we speak. It's down to +3. I'd probably be cautious at that price. I'd like to bet her at +4. Next game, Clemson at Georgia Tech, ACC battle. Fun fact here, Matt. Clemson hasn't won at Georgia Tech since 2019. Josh Pastner has been excellent against the spread at home. Do you take the home dog here against a vulnerable, maybe, Clemson squad, or are you rolling with the Tigers?
Too many injury question marks for Georgia Tech. And when I say too many, I guess it's really just 2. I'm blanking on the names right now. I'm sorry. They're all shuffling. Javon Franklin and Davion Smith, one of which are both. Smith came back, and Franklin's still, I think, TBD. Doubtful for this game, TBD. Yeah, it's not a deep team. I'd like to have all my guys in for Georgia Tech. Like, I don't love this roster as is. So, like, if I'm missing pieces from an already thin roster, it doesn't give me a lot of confidence. But yeah, I do think Georgia Tech's a little bit undervalued, Jim, but I think with the way they play under Pastner, like they've kind of actualized that identity of we're going to muck it up and be kind of smoke and mirrorsy and surprise you and sneak up on you. And I think that will play well in good spots. This would be one of them, but I didn't take it.
Yeah, I bet the under for a little bit here. I think the personnel absences could help that. I think Georgia Tech style, the zone where they really force you to slow down and figure out what they're playing, are conducive to that. And I looked at some of the Bet Labs data. I was curious if there were like venues that were conducive to unders. And McCamish Pavilion's been a huge under spot. And obviously some of that is Georgia Tech and the way they play. But I think that plays into why I kind of like the under here. That was my lean. I had nothing on the side. I just Georgia Tech, I'm still trying to figure out right now, Kai.
I mean, Clemson, holy pendulum swings lately, like the demolition, but then got to, yeah. So who knows?
Yeah, I feel like Clemson's defense matches pretty well with Georgia Tech style-wise. Their shooting's unsustainable, Clemson on offense, but also Georgia Tech's defensive